Hello guys, recently I posted this tweet about CRUDs and about API endpoints, which is not so cruddy. And in this video I want to quote some answers, what people recommend or suggest to do in this case. If you want to have actions of start and stop the parking order, what would be the methods? Should it be start and stop, or should you have more cruddy approach and make it like store and update or destroy? And this is based on Adam Wathan's very popular talk CRUD by Design from Laracon. I've recently written a summary of that in text format, really long read, and even longer video itself, 40 minutes, but it's definitely worth it, so I do recommend you to watch it. The links will be in the description below. But back to the topics, what would you do in this case? I received quite a lot of replies on Twitter. Luckily I have 30,000 followers, so a lot of people do reply and suggest something, and let's see what they said. First, I want to quote the reply by Rampa Quattro before everything I will mention next, before listing all the possible options. I really liked this reply. There's a million ways to do it, and only very few of those are wrong. And this is a typical Laravel thing in terms of CRUD and MVC. It's your personal preference how you structure it. The goal is for that to be understandable for other teammates and maintainable in the future. For example, if a new teammate joins, if requirements change, or something like that. So CRUD by Adam Wathan in summary is trying to make everything as a CRUD so it would be predictable, resourceful controllers, 7 methods maximum, and avoiding any custom methods like start and stop. But it's your personal preference whether to follow that and how accurately to follow that, 100% or not exactly. And this is what people said in this case. Andreas Miller pointed out, rightfully, that there are 2 questions inside: how to call the controller names, so CRUD or not, and how to call the API endpoints, the routes, the URLs, the visual part for the client, whether it's mobile app or front-ender or whatever. And those may be with the same logic or may be different. API endpoints are more strict and shouldn't change unless you release a new API version. Inside of controller, you may be more flexible and change the controller names later in the future if needed. So first, what we need to decide in this case is the endpoints names and then the controller. Some people posted both the endpoints and the controller method names, but Chris, for example, posted just the endpoints. One of the options is to have start and stop on the order, but the tricky part here is that you need to have order by them. So it's actually then 2 endpoints. You post the order, then you get the order ID, and then you post the start of the order, which may be okay or maybe not okay depending on your application logic. Another suggestion by Andrew, who posted both endpoints and controller names: parking started, parking finished. So you deal with the parking as an object, and then you have separately start parking controller and finish parking controller with 1 method each. So this is another approach. An invocable controller may be okay. Probably I would just rename started to start because the action is start, and finished to finish. But that's a valid approach. Then another approach by Sam, renaming the thing into parking status controller. We just update the status for both. Again, for that we probably need to have parking order before, and then we just start the parking with status update and finish the parking with another update. So just one put endpoint with update method on parking status controller. But again, that requires 2 endpoints then, order and then status of that order. Then Wendell here has an answer with 17 likes, so I guess a lot of people agree with him. He's talking not about endpoints but about controllers with 2 options. Either parking controller with start and stop methods, which would be against the cruddy approach, or then invocable controllers, each with 1 method. Is just not start parking action, but probably start parking controller and stop parking controller, he meant, with 1 method each. Another approach. Another approach similar but with a slight twist by Pascal: post the parking session because we don't have the parking session ID by then, and then delete the parking session. And Adam Wathan in his talk about CRUD emphasizes which method of the 7 would be the closest to what we actually want to achieve. In this case, we'll want to stop the session, which is kind of a delete method and not update. But it's your personal preference. It's put or destroy. Interestingly, the most popular answer with 32 likes was the shortest one by Benjamin, who repeated the same thing already mentioned a few times in this video, mentioned by others. Start parking controller, invocable controller with one method, and then you post start parking. The same name, start parking and start parking in the controller, in the endpoint, in sync. The only question remains what to do with stop parking controller, but I imagine it would be stop parking controller invoke and then post to stop parking with ID as a parameter. There are quite a few more answers which are similar to the ones I've mentioned, with maybe slight twists, so I will link the original tweet in the description below. But generally the question is this: how far do you want to go outside of a typical CRUD resourceful approach? And this is mentioned by Trevor as well, how MailChimp years ago talked about breaking away from REST conventions, which is basically the same thing as breaking away from CRUD resourceful controllers in Laravel. For some situations, it's totally fine, okay, and it's your personal preference how to name things, how to structure things. The only goal remains, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, is for that to be understandable and maintainable in the future. What would be your approach? Maybe you would add something else to those answers. Shoot in the comments below. And if you want to read my summary of CRUD by design, it's a premium article available for premium members. I write more and more premium tutorials, which means very long tutorials here on Laravel Daily.com. So if you want to get all of those, it is available for premium members. So subscribe for yearly or monthly membership. That's it for this time, and see you guys in other videos.